Ugh. Okay, good morning. I don't know what's going on with some of this right now because I couldn't hear any of the intro music on my studio monitor. So let me know, guys, if y'all were hearing the music this morning. Um. Anyway, good morning. It is Friday. Yes, Lord. So here we are, Friday morning. That means Firearms Friday, and I have got a story for you. Uh. Oh, hang on. Sergeant Major says there was a big buck in the yard last night, and that's good news. We have land, and, and yes, we intend to stock the freezers this year. Um, but Dad, you'll get a kick out of this. Last night I was working late, and I went back in to get some more coffee, and when I came back out, there was an owl sitting on top of my contractor trailer in the yard. Great, I mean, like that, like yeah, big ass owl. And I came out and saw the owl, and it looked at me, uh, and and we kind of just stood there and stared at each other for almost 2 minutes before it flew off. And then, Dad, you say sounds good. Music was loud. Was it too loud? Let me know because I can adjust that as well. All right. So I've got a story this morning, and the re- the reporting is very early. This is an incident that occurred yesterday afternoon. Uh, but let's take a look at the story. So, Kentucky sheriff charged in killing of judge at courthouse. This was updated at 4:25 this morning. Um, and the story is a judge in a rural Kentucky county was shot and killed in his courthouse chambers Thursday, and the local sheriff was charged with murder in the slaying, police said. So, who shot the sheriff? Well, nobody. Apparently, the sheriff did the shooting. Now, this judge is a Democrat appointee, and Governor Bashir is, of course, a big Kamala supporter. But I'm not sure politics is the angle to discuss here, other than the obvious evidence to hand that Democrats are just inherently violent people. Um, Violence is their basic language. It's their mother tongue. The story goes, however, that the sheriff basically walked into the courthouse and shot the judge in his chambers. Now, the total population of I know Letcher County, Kentucky, is about 20,000 people. So, uh, by most accounts, this is a very small town community. I mean, it's not It's not like where I live, you know, where we have, the total county population is less than 3,000. But we're talking about a county with almost triple the population of my community, and that's still a very small town. Funny thing about small towns, I don't know exactly how many police officers, how many sheriff's deputies they have there. I know here we have three. We have we have a sheriff, two deputies, and a resource officer who kind of counts, I guess. So four. Um, four cops for the whole county. And that's all we need. When I say that's all we need, a small town like that, the facts are these. Everybody knows everybody. And it's not just everybody knows everybody. Everybody is in everybody else's business. Like my family and I, we moved out here and bought this land within the last 6 months. Uh so we're not as plugged in with the locals yet. But we're doing stuff. My little man is playing soccer, so we're getting out and meeting people, meeting the community, and y'all like I can meet just about anybody around here and say I bought so and so's old place, and they know exactly where I'm talking about. They know exactly where I am, exactly who that is. Uh, these people know each other. The last murder in this county was 4 years ago, right? Oh, and so the thing with that about a small county, small town, everybody knows everybody, and if there's some if there's some beef, if there's some bad blood, if there's a reason that somebody might want to take the law into their own hands, whether they're the sheriff or not, everybody knows it. Everybody. So if whatever's going on here, the truth will out most likely because the locals know what was going on between the judge and the sheriff. So I'm gonna read you a little more of the story itself and kind of how it happened. The preliminary investigation indicates Letcher County Sheriff Shawn M. Stines, locally known as Mickey Stines, shot District Judge Kevin Mullins multiple times following an argument inside the courthouse, according to Kentucky State Police. Mullins, who held the judgeship for 15 years, died at the scene, and Stines surrendered without incident. Here's my problem. Here's my not problem. Well, yeah, kind of. Here's my kind of problem with that. You've got the reporting, the early reporting. There doesn't seem to be any motive mentioned, and I'm finding it difficult to believe that after a small town sheriff kills a small town judge, there aren't people like not just the locals right there, but remember everything I was just saying about people being in each other's business in a small town. How do you think that translates to a building, a business, an office in a small town? Right? Y'all might live in bigger. Hell, some of y'all might be doing business in Atlanta or have worked in a business near a bigger community. And you know what? That that business is its own small community, a tight knit community where everybody knows each other and everybody knows who's in whose Kool Aid, right? So, um, excuse me. So it's it's not like there wasn't a paralegal or bailiff or a stenographer or court reporter, or somebody there. I'm not saying in the office with the judge and the sheriff when everything went down, but those people were there. They work with this judge. They know this sheriff. And if there's something going on between these guys, they know it. So that some sort of eyewitness account, ear witness account, what have you, is not immediately forthcoming is at a minimum interesting, but potentially suspicious. whenever you see news report and there are details missing should be obvious and easily ascertained, right? I mean, if you're a journalist, especially an investigative journalist, um, I know we go pretty hard on journalists here because, well, they're shit. But in theory, a journalist's toolkit should include many of the same tools as a as an intelligence operator, especially a human intelligence operator. Now we say human, we think, oh, interrogator. Mm, Let's interrogation is one tool in the humanter's toolkit, right? There's a lot of being sneaky, go and undercover type of stuff in that toolkit as well. But more importantly, and you'd be amazed how much value can be placed on this. There's just networking, just simply meeting the community. Believe it or not, you put on a man dress and a head wrap and just go out and talk to the locals. Some of them aren't happy about what's going on nearby and they want to talk about it. They want to talk about it. One method that I employed on more than one occasion, we've got a captive who was wrapped up in connection with an incident, right? I'm talking about downrange stuff here. And I'm gonna go in the room with him. He's sitting at a little folding table. He's zip cuffed. His hands are zip cuffed together, and I can put down a cup of tea, and I can start talking to him. I can leave him sitting there for an extra 10 or 15 minutes longer than one might expect would be reasonable. Wait till he looks like he's getting agitated and aggravated about being stuck in the cell by himself. Then go in and tell him all about how I'm so sorry that he had to wait because my boss is such a pain in the ass and I had to do X, Y, and Z. And you know what the next thing out of his face is going to be? Oh man, my boss is a pain in the ass too. Let me tell you about it. I'm listening. And somebody outside is taking notes about that boss's name and the kinds of micromanagement that he engages in and how that affects your daily operations. Right? You'd be amazed how quick people are to just spill valuable intelligence. Now, I say all that to say this. In this particular case, there are I'm going to call these unverified reports. I am. But Nick Sorter so this is from Nick Sorter on X. Uh, it is being suggested, and I see from the comments that at least a few people have seen the reporting, have seen this other reporting. Um, Ellen Smith, thanks for watching this morning. And says, all I could say is my dad would have done the same thing. And that is what we're going to talk about this. So Nick Sorter says, breaking, exclusive, high-ranking government sources tell me the sheriff who shot and killed a Kentucky judge today did so because the judge was raping the sheriff's underage daughter. And he goes on to talk about how Governor Andy Beshear is a surrogate of Kamala Harris, et cetera, et cetera. And like I said, apart from the brute fact, as evidenced by recent events, that Democrats are just baseline violent humans, I don't know that the politics of the thing really matters all that much. But that suggestion, that accusation, if that's true, big if true, if that's true, there's a couple things to take away from there. No matter what it is that that the judge did, the suggestion here being that the judge raped the sheriff's daughter, uh, that language is loaded, right? The sheriff's daughter is underage, apparently. So we could be talking about a statutory situation where it wasn't actually non-consensual, other than, and don't get me wrong, guys, we're dealing entirely in hypotheticals because we don't have any more corroborating reports of this allegation. But let's say for a minute that it's technically rape under the law because it was a statutory rape, the judge being an adult and the daughter being underage, right? That there ain't no Romeo and Juliet law here. It's not like they were 17 together and then he turned 18 and got picked up. Um, Waller also asks the question: is she 7 or 17.9? And we don't know. I haven't been able to find that information yet this morning, and I've been looking. Another thing about a small town, that information is not all that readily available. And Waller, it does matter. It does matter the difference between 17 and 7 and 17. That matters on a whole lot of levels. Assuming the scenario I just described, where it's a statutory situation. Now, if we're talking about just good old garden variety Hades and Persephone, then yeah, no, there's no excuse. But let's be clear about something. No matter what the judge did, no matter what it was that the judge did, the sheriff did break the law. He did commit the crime. He, in fact, committed, by all accounts that we have thus far, premeditated murder. Now, investigation ongoing. I don't know any. I don't know any way around it, but there's always the possibility that the sheriff went there to confront the judge. The judge pulled a revolver out of his desk, and the sheriff drew in self-defense. Although, like I said, that's an extreme hypothetical. That's the only way that I can think legally. Remember, I'm talking about under the law right now. We'll get to the moral question in a minute. Legally, it seems very difficult to make an argument for the sheriff. That said, I have 3 daughters. I can almost guarantee you that if something were done to one of my little girls, I would not commit a premeditated homicide with malice of forethought and the means to do so, which involved a firearm. Not which involved a firearm. Now, let's talk about the morality. I have 3 daughters. Are you a parent? Because damn the law. You have not only a moral responsibility, a divine obligation to see to the safety and welfare of those children. I might go so far as to say that if you have failed in that capacity, perhaps the only redemption available to you is to avenge the harm done in your absence. So, let's talk about vendetta. Vendetta. That's right. Y'all know, those of you who've watched the show, I'm a big fan of Viva Fry and Robert Barnes. Robert Barnes is a brilliant attorney. Barnes was talking the other day about the value of vendetta. And yeah. Now, what I'm suggesting here is not that we need to be going out and doing the vigilante thing all the time, right? No. Rather, what I'm suggesting is that the possibility of finding yourself on the wrong side of vigilantism should be one that people consider. It should be a possibility that is ever present in the minds of people faced with moral quandaries. The certain knowledge that your bad action, that a person causing harm to another person, especially intentional harm, evil motivations, right? The certainty that those will be met with retaliation, with severe retaliation, fatal retaliation. We live today in a world of keyboard warriors. I'm guilty. This is my studio. I talk on the internet. Now, I'm retired from actual warrioring. And I like to think that what I do here is about fighting the good fight, you know, criticizing the enemy and empowering you guys to go out and do right with that information, to vote correctly. Early voting's coming up quick, by the way. And we're going to have a whole show about early voting with as many of our favorite special guest hosts as I can manage. But vendetta, that is a far better deterrent than the law. Right? Right now, nationally, the homicide solve rate for law enforcement is around 50%. And I suspect that is a very generous interpretation of the statistics. Because gangbangers, by a wide margin, are not getting locked up for every murder they've committed. Right? Even the gangbangers who get busted and locked up for murder, they get locked up for a murder. Drive-bys are a thing. So, assuming there is truth to the allegation that the judge was untoward with this young lady, I would say that the sheriff was morally justified. And I would be assuming the truth of that claim, assuming the truth of that allegation, I would be deeply and totally comfortable with complete jury nullification. Right? We've covered it before. There's a story. I don't remember the details now, and unfortunately, I don't remember enough of the details to find it quickly. But it's not a single occurrence thing. But there was one story in particular that we covered on Firearms Friday, probably 5 or 6 years ago. It's been a while, but there was this woman who walked into a police station with a butcher knife and stabbed a police officer to death in the lobby of the police station where he worked while he was on uniform with other police officers and other civilians and citizens in the waiting room in the lobby on camera. They showed the security video at her trial. And she told her story. And her story involved that officer having abused her in very specific and untoward ways. And we're talking deep psychological and physical trauma that this woman suffered at the hands of this police officer. She told her story. Apparently, it was very compelling because all of the evidence was crystal clear. Under the law, what she had done undeniably There is not a reasonable person in the world who could look at the evidence presented against her and come to any other conclusion within the context of the law. But what she did was she made a plan and committed cold-blooded murder. And the jury acquitted her. Completely acquitted. Based on the story of the way that officer had treated her. Now, I'm certainly not saying that every murder case goes like that, right? Certainly, it's not the case that every murder has a reasonable, uh, even a reasonable explanation, let alone a legal excuse. But to say that all homicides are murder would be a complete fallacy. It's just untenable. But assuming the truth of the allegation, I would go so far as to say that vendetta is worth discussing. It's worth being aware of. Now, I know why you guys watch this show, and I know it's Friday, so we don't do the politics so much on this show, except for the politics of First Amendment or Second Amendment support, etc. Generally, I mean, damn it, that was going to be funnier. It's hard, y'all. It is hard as hell to point at a thing in the background. Not going to pick them up and handle them because YouTube shuts us down for that shit, apparently. But the value of the vendetta, it would do my heart good, and it would do this country, would do the morale, right? Morality is one thing, but the morale of this country wonderfully well. We need some Hatfield and McCoy. People need to believe that if they go out and hurt somebody, that they will be causing a feud between two families, which will pile bodies in the streets and rage on for generations. Understand this, the important distinction I'm making here. I'm not saying that that is the thing that needs to happen. Unless that happening very visibly is what it takes to get us to this other point that I'm talking about. People need to believe it. People need to believe that if they go and hurt somebody, that that's somebody's father, brothers, uncles, cousins, will roll up in a pickup truck and solve you in the full and clear understanding that the result of that solution will be that your brothers, fathers, uncles, etc., will retaliate again. This makes the idea of hurting someone, of treating immorally with others, so abhorrent as to become unthinkable. The consequences, right? That is where we are. That's how we got Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I know I'm trickling down into consequences now, into politics now, but it really is this simple. We live in a world where a corrupt judicial system has made it such that a certain protected class is free of consequences. And that's how you get the Summer of Love 2020 BLM riots with almost no one, statistically, virtually no one suffering any consequences, right? There were no arrests or convictions of the people that killed the several dozen police officers that died as a result of those riots. And you hardly even hear them mentioned on the news, right? Kamala Harris is still willing to go on a national debate stage and say that police officers were murdered by January 6th protesters on January 6th, and it's a lie. It's a bald-faced lie. Now there were a few Trump supporters that were murdered by police officers that day, but there were no officers killed that day. Police officers lost their lives in the BLM riots, consequence free. That's unacceptable. We live in a world today. I mentioned the keyboard warriors, right? We have free speech in this country for now, in theory, First Amendment free speech. And I am I am almost a free speech absolutist. And we don't need to go down that rabbit hole any further for this conversation, but I'm almost a free speech absolutist. I do like that people can post anonymously online because there are some things that are very difficult for weak people to say and attach their names to that need to be said. And I would rather those things be said under the protection of anonymity than that they be unsayable because of the available consequences. But that's speech, not action. Right? But the keyboard warriors are more than happy to just say things because they never get punched in the mouth. Punched in the mouth? Right? I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's fun. It's not how I get down. But boy, oh boy, does it give you some perspective. And there are very few things as valuable as some legitimate perspective. So I am going to put a pin in it right there. Because if I don't, then the show goes for another 30 minutes and I got work to do, y'all. So I want to say thanks for watching this morning. I kind of want to apologize for the show taking it was just kind of a little dark this morning. I wasn't as funny as I usually am. I know. I apologize. But hey, I didn't have as many technical issues as we did yesterday. So thanks for watching this morning, guys. We're going into the weekend, big weekend around my place. Yeah, Waller says, punch in the mouth. Hell, been shot in the plates. LOL. Okay, fair play. I've never actually been hit with a bullet. I've never been hit with a bullet. But I have been shot at, and I have been blown up a couple times. You know, shit happens. And yeah, kind of like getting punched in the mouth. Give you some perspective. I took a tent post to the shin one time in an indirect fire attack, mortar attack on a blackout base. Woo! Yeah, that's a healthy dose of perspective. So anyway, going into the weekend, big weekend around for my family. We've got a wedding, and super excited about that. To the rest of y'all, whatever your plans are this weekend, don't drink too much, don't drive drunk, don't fry bacon naked. We love you, and we will see you on Monday.